Good evening, streaming audience. You are in the live dead air zone, the liminal space of the viscosity of glue, inflecting and responding to gravity and surface tension. Glue that is gluing itself to itself, forming a bond, and the torque and the tension is influencing that bond. Welcome, streaming audience. We are in the live dead air zone, a liminal space that is influenced by friction and gravity and surface tension as it is injected into the flow and pulse of glue. Glue, social glue. The glue is interacting with itself to glue and stabilize itself into a constant form. Streaming audience, you are experiencing a live dead air zone in liminal space, the space between the start and the start. The space between the start and the start, liminal space. Glue influenced by friction and gravity and tension and release. Streaming audience, you have entered the live streaming dead air zone, the liminal space between the start and the start. Glue influenced by torque, surface tension, interval, fluidity, gravity. That is culminated in a pulse sequence based on the viscosity and surface tension of the glue. This is the essence of our social glue, isolating the characteristics and physicality as it is influenced by the environment. The glue is the universal glue that we've all used in society. The glue is Elmer's glue, which has been used by millions and millions of school children in art classes. This glue is the essence of the source of creativity. You are experiencing a live dead air zone, a liminal space where glue is reacting to the environment of gravity and surface tension. This is the zone of the start and the liminal space between the start. Streaming audience, you are in the live dead air zone, a liminal space existing in the initialization of the concept of social glue. An exhibition presented by 407 Gallery and infused with the artwork and conceptual reality of Shane DeLeon. The altitude here is 3,132 feet. Barometric pressure is 29.87. Live streaming audience, welcome. You are in the live dead air zone, liminal space. The space where the pulse of tension and release, influenced by gravity and friction, influences the nature of the glue, which is inherently gluing itself to itself, forming a bond much like the human race. back to the glue, the source. So liminal space. The start of what I can determine was an event, a happening here in Billings, Montana, involved with Shane DeLeon in his art class. This must be 1980, 1979 in art class. What would this have to do with that, do you think? Well, this was precipitated by Shane when we were just visiting. Yeah. Told me of a happening, of an event, of an episode. In class.
Middle school.
Middle school, junior high. Okay, so how did that connect? How did that connect to this?
I spent a lot of time in Saturday school. One of the reasons I was in Saturday school is because I had Mr. Micheletti as one of my teachers, and we didn't get along very well. This was at Will James Junior High, 1985, 1984, something 1984.
Like that. Okay.
And one of the things I liked to do was to walk by. We had a table in the middle of the classroom of the art class, and I'd walk by with a compass, and I would poke the bottles, the plastic bottles of paint, and they would drip on the floor, and I was like, and I'd get Saturday school for this. I would go to detention pretty much most weekends. Yeah. But I actually liked how the paint splattered on the floor. And I did it as an act of vandalism, but I enjoyed the act of art that happened.
But what you did was an amazing installation piece with the scale and the pulse, again, of poking those holes and seeing the result, which is planned, but it also has a random effect. Yeah. And then seeing, after the first one, you must have had the intuition to do more because, they were lined up on the table or something? So it's what they were doing.
There's a table like this where you have a bunch of bottles. And take a compass, see with the sharp point.
Yeah, so there's the random flow of the drips splattering to the floor, plus the grid. See, it's not totally random because the grid of the rows of the bottles, there are multiple bottles, so you're forming this piece that's generated by this action that forms a fantastic conceptual piece in addition to visual.
But at the time,
it's highly visual.
Vandalism.
Yeah, you're doing vandalism. But the thing that's fascinating with this, Shane, is that your art teacher in an art environment would not somehow connect to that process, the process and the materials, which is flowing through all of everybody's art making. Yeah. And at least, I know you were destroying, and you were vandalizing, and you were wrecking things, but you had an unbelievable energy and progression through the thing. You sustained it, you saw it, you felt it, and you kept going, right?
Yeah.
So that at least there would be some, okay, Shane, not good. You're going to go sit in this room. However, I must say, Shane, that this is very interesting, and I love how this thing was created. And that it was a great idea to actually identify it and stand back and look at it and see the result. Yeah. So that was in middle school. Yeah. So then the next episode we have of Shane, and we're trying to we're evolving, we're going back and seeing your way of thinking without thinking you're going to be an artist or anything else, but you're just naturally curious and innovative and energized in your environment. So now that brings us to you're in high school.
Yeah.
We need to get the camera on this.
I think she's over here with that.
Oh, here, yeah. Now you're in high school.
Shane, can you check your mic that's plugged in?
Oh, yeah.
Can I see that it makes it on?
Good. Great, we need some glitches. This is all about glitches too, so thank you. Thank you for...
Nothing. Hey. All right.
Oh, I lost it again.
I don't know.
There we go.
I'll try to be real careful with that.
Yeah, you can.
That's probably not tender. Sorry, John. Sorry.
No, this is good. No, this is part of it. We need we need glitches too. This is part of it, the glitch. We go with it. Yeah. See, we just fragmented our train of thought. We got off track. That's good. We get to think of something else.
You're through with us today.
Yeah, we don't know where are we, what's happening. We're going to totally forget. No,
Does that work
no,
better? You got
we're not gonna
that?
forget
This isn't being used now? I'll take this one off.
It is being used.
Oh,
Don't have that one's on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Make that way better.
Okay, so we're on to this, like close up, because this is.
okay,
all-
so what we're talking about is I was a vandal in junior high, and I liked the artwork that happened through vandalism. We got in a lot of trouble for that. And
Yeah,
then,
deconstruction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
You know,
moved-
painting murals, you know, graffiti, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's part of the whole thing. But here we have in another class
Yep.
in high school. Now this is
possibly
really,
Donna Lowe's, I don't remember.
Yeah. Okay. So this is. So we were. You know. So I look at this. This is in. I collected Shane's all of his graphics, because all of his graphics connect directly to all of his music. He's a guitar player. He's a composer. He writes, and it's just fascinating how the visual work that he's done, just invented on his own, to interface with his wonderful composition and search and experimentation with sound. So here we have this piece. When I saw that in his show of all of his work, of posters that he's done, like this whole show is here, like we mentioned in his artist statement on the wall, he saved every bit and piece of paper in his whole life
This is true.
that he can actually manage to save. Maybe a few got lost or crept through. But so this is one back in 1986. Now this is in printing class, right?
Because she's going to focus on it.
This is in printing
This
class?
is in a graphic arts class
Yeah, and
out
yeah,
at the
graphic
Career
arts
Center,
class.
I would imagine.
It's a
Actually,
career
not
center.
Donna Lowe's. This is probably Mr. Bailey or
Yeah.
Zach Garrison.
Zach Garrison, I even know Zach Garrison. He was in. So when we first looked at this and I pulled it out, you hadn't seen it for a while, and so Shane, really the first thing you thought of that it might have been a linoleum print.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't
And that's,
remember.
or woodcut or something. No, then I said, well, we said, no, it can't be. It's too detailed. There's too much intricate. But here, then we figured out that the medium is probably a silk screen.
Yep.
So that makes sense because you're in graphics, right?
Yep.
And you were learning how to make images in graphics and halftone screens,
Yeah.
silk screens, and exposing film.
Yeah, and old obsolete things like rubylith, things
yeah,
that aren't even
ruby
used
lith.
anymore.
So this we determined, I can tell by the look at this has got all of the characteristics of ruby lith because it's a layered substance, and it's called ruby, and it's a layer that peels off, and you can cut it very delicately, and it's just exquisite fluid surface, and you pull it, and that's where all of these detailed things come from. So you abstracted using the medium of an X-Acto knife probably with ruby lith, cut in, etched for future burning into a silk screen, this image. And it looked like it was highly not flexible. But the whole idea, right, Shane, was this is a skateboard event, right?
Yeah, I was way in skateboarding.
So
First
what-
form of creativity I was super into was skateboarding.
Skateboarding, right?
And that's what this is. This might be, I don't remember who it was. Can't even make a guess.
So what is so absolutely fascinating by this is the abstraction he intuitively or saw or whatever, because it's about skateboarding, which is totally out of control. You're flying through space. You get all kinds of unknown events happening, and that's exactly what's happening in this piece. There's fragments, and right here, when you know it's skateboard, you can see there's a skateboard. There's some general shapes and forms of limbs and body flying out of sync on this, and there's this unbelievable splat of energy coming out of this thing, like this, this span of.
This is like
force.
1987 or something like this.
Right.
That's when this is.
And so, right, Shane, the goal of this was to create a technically proficient
Yes.
silk screen.
This is what our grades were
we're
based
after
on.
here. We're after right?
Our grades
Be a
are based
good
on a
process.
technically proficient.
Yeah, not necessarily what.
None of this like noise
Yeah,
created.
yeah,
They want
right.
a flat
You've
surface.
got good, clean, everything is wonderful, and so that was the priority, right? So,
Huh?
so you followed through with the assignment, right? And this is what you did, and you printed. You made the print, pulled the print, did the process, exposure, get the ink, right? Mix it. You can tell it because you can see the ink. So that is, we've established it is a serigraph.
Yeah.
It is a. And based on all of that effort in that context, this, which now has transcended just a pure mechanical silkscreen or serigraph, it's a piece of art, and it's what's
Well, I'm glad you see it for that. I was happy to
and
find
what's
it.
fascinating, it's what's fascinating. So you see this, 40 years later.
Oh, yes,
And it's in a
80s.
show, and you when you see it, you know this isn't an exercise in print quality. This is a work of art that you say, what is this? This is totally abstract, and the form, and and everything about it, the fragmentation of it. And so the concept of it, that this is graded. So we look at it as a piece of art, but he gets a grade on this from the instructor. And this piece of art, which is totally abstract in its own realm, of identity and self-expression, he gets a grade of C- on his art. Which,
Get that C- on there.
There's the C-.
Signed by Shane
So
Sowers, which is,
Yeah.
my full name is Shane DeLeon Sowers, Still signing it with the Sowers name back there. 7 of 8.
So that's.
Somewhere in the world, probably in a trash can, maybe there.
So Shane, is that a good? Any other insights?
Well, I love that you
Did
picked this out of my show last year, and you see.
Yeah, that was
you
in fact,
see.
this is- yeah. I just go crazy when I see this. I mean, I remember I got that. I said, "Wow, this is it's just."
I kind of did a
It's-
retrospective of printmaking at Kirk's Grocery last year.
Yeah. So now this is. So now, but you're also you're doing music and playing guitar at this point also.
Yep.
But here, then, fast forward, I just want to show how this relates to the graphic design that he's doing, besides being a musician. Everybody knows Shane is a musician, has played with numerous bands and is a writer. But here is an unbelievably proficient and extensive array of graphic design that's running along with the bands he's playing. So he not only plays with the bands and rehearses and they record, he's also doing their graphics. Just because that relates and connects to what he learned in Billings, Montana in print school or something.
Yeah.
So here's Rollerball, an experimental electronic music band in Portland, Oregon. And the first thing that Shane does is, because you have this connection to graphics. Okay?
Yep.
So how did that all unfold? How did you ever get involved with these?
Well,
with this
this
printing
is, we have to take a step back. This says 00 right here. So this is February 10th,
Yeah.
2000. I didn't even have an email account at this time. So at this time, you have to imagine we're making posters for our bands. There's no internet that I'm using at this point. And what I'm doing is taking these posters and, you get a show. Rollerball, I would say on an average, probably played their hometown 2 to 3 times a month, Portland, Oregon. And then we would tour extensively throughout the year. So we were a very active band. And when you're a very active band, pre-internet, instead of Facebook events, you're just making posters. And you're trying to make them as quick as possible because you want them to be different than everybody else's band. So you don't want to just do Kinko's copying. So I was super into silk screening, which I learned out at the Career Center here in Billings, Montana.
Right.
These are hand cut out of paper. I cut these letters in reverse out of a piece of paper, and then I just put that on a silk screen, like glued it to a silk screen, and then pushed ink through it, and that's how I texted this. But after I had made the poster, I realized that all the paper I had for the poster was too small. So the black paper was too small for the image I had made by about 2 inches. So then I went and found other paper, and I taped / glued
Right. Glued.
this piece of paper to another piece of paper so that I could actually print my print on there. And this is a monoprint of this one. And if you can even go deeper, that this piece of paper first is a monoprint of this blue with a silkscreen print over the top. It's a ridiculous way to make posters, but I was just trying to make them fast.
Make them fast.
I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh man, we got a show in 8 days. I got to make a poster, and I'd make 40 posters and go stick them on poles.
The structure of it, the substructure, the functioning physicality of it with the tape is just really, you just take some tape and slap the tape on. There's nothing precious about this. This is just like organic. This whole thing is organic. It's just real. It doesn't seem mechanical at all, except for the wonderful tape. Anyway, that's like an improvisation. That's going down like playing guitar, really, when you just transfer it, to the processes, whatever goes on with the technique and all the sound and amps and processing with music. The same principle here. Very innovative. Very innovative.
I
and original.
love that you see all that
Again,
in there.
it's all paper, by the way. Paper. He collects
Paper, which is
he saves this paper.
the first line of this show we're here today, Social Glue, talks about paper. I've been a paper
Exactly.
collector
Paper.
since as long as I can remember.
Paper.
This
Is
thing
the
on the wall
essence.
here is paper from the 80s
And,
that were saved letters. I've just saved paper my whole life because
yeah.
one,
And
art supplies are expensive, and two, used paper is so beautiful.
used paper so beautifully. It gains a patina over time. And this is paper over long periods of time
Yeah.
that you've saved, not knowing, but you just save no matter what. That's the whole thing about it. You don't have an immediate plan. Maybe you'll use them in 10 years, I don't know, 5 years, but you just keep it. That's your rule. That's your process. That's the beauty of it. It's just a relentless methodology that no matter what you save, the receipts, it's paper.
Yeah.
Right? Then the next step, the paper piles up in boxes.
And speaking of rollerball, I mean, I've been collecting set lists for bands since the 30s.
Yeah,
I have
set
a stack of set lists like this big that I have yet to make a collage of because I
Yeah.
don't know what to make the collage of. But there's just,
So we have,
tons
yes.
of paper that
So we have
someday will
all
be collaged together. And they're all set lists and they'll have something on them.
so we have all this paper. Then what's the next thing that makes it manifest?
Glue.
Glue.
Ink.
Glue. Glue is like the glue that glues everything all the paper. There's glue. All of the books, millions of books, are held together by glue. I just love how it sounds. Glue. The binding, the sewing, the paper. It's the miraculous spice sewing of hardcover books. All the cloth, all the paper, is all evolved around paper and glue. When you can look at all of civilization, all of knowledge, from Gutenberg printing on paper with ink, then gluing it together was the first communication of knowledge.
Mass communication, yeah.
Is glue and paper.
Yeah.
Social glue.
Up here with this sweet graphic Jon Lodge design.
Jon Lodge design. Now, hopefully, you would get that this E here that edge is being hung there by epoxy, some really powerful glue that can take that weight of that massive E on that thin surface of the U and just have it barely touch and suspend it from the gravitational pull. That was the concept of glue, that it looks like it may be influenced by glue itself. In fact, it is glued to the wall. So we can't get away from glue. Wait a minute, what are we talking? Look at these shoes are glued together. Your shoes are glued together.
Yeah.
Social glue. All of the millions of children at tables gluing paper together, learning about art. And just about universally, this is also kind of interesting, just about all of the glue everybody's using is Elmer's glue. It's been here forever.
I've been
Elmer's
using
glue.
Elmer's for years.
Elmer's glue.
What is this? It's got a
what
price
we
tag
have.
on it. It's like $9.99 at Ross. This is my main thing that I use in art. I've been told to use other things. It's not archival. A lot of things. But for me, what I love about Elmer's glue is it dries and it's gone. It disappears when it doesn't leave a surface. It's not
amazingly
matte.
sophisticated.
It doesn't leave
And
any sort of history that it's
Yeah.
there, except that things are stuck together.
Yeah.
You can't see that it's there.
And that's what I love about it. I love about it is that it's Elmer's glue. It's Elmer, Elmer, and I think Elmer, this is a subtle connection. Elmer, and there's the cow. So the cow is probably Elmer, not Elmer Schwartz. This is Elmer. Okay, so and what connection does that have? Elmer, why would you have that? Because glue is made from cow and horse hooves.
Yeah. Glue is
The
not
material
vegan.
of horse hooves and cow hooves is used to make glue. So maybe that's why Elmer the cow's on
Yeah.
there. So that's
Yeah.
another reason to use them. So we've got this your paper, and then the next event that's happening about the same time you're doing this
Uh-huh.
is you're saving a bunch of text communication,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you're about 16 or 17,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah,
this
right
piece
as the
here.
same time as I'm making this, I am.
Speaking of saving paper,
I'm writing
and
these
infusing
letters.
it with your, with your feelings and your thoughts, is writing letters. So how does this evolve? This piece?
Well, this, if you love paper or you love whatever, if you love something, some people love clothes and they collect clothes and they keep clothes for 50 years, things they had, forever. I don't know why paper's important, but I was a massive letter writer all through the 80s and 90s. I was a zine trader, trading
Yeah.
zines,
Yeah.
trading albums in the underground music world. But these are letters that my mother saved that I left at her house. I left home at 17 and moved to San Diego, California. And after I had left, when your mom cleans out your room and you've moved out, she finds things, and she just happened to find all these letters that are just correspondence, mainly with women, girls that I had met on vacations. There's a woman here named Susan. This piece is called Susan. And most of these letters are from a woman named Susan who lived in Bozeman, and we just had a correspondence. We were pen pals. There's some light flirting, pretty inane conversation. For the most part, I put it upside down on this
Upside
piece.
down.
I wanted it
want
to
people
be
to read 'em?
but I also want you
You
to
can-
mess
yeah,
with your
it's,
brain. Just turning
it's
things
fragmented.
upside down abstracts it completely.
Yeah, it's abstract and fragmented also. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can if you want to, and you work at it, which is fine. Which I love that.
I love this piece. This is such a great one.
You've said this. I've heard this. You love this piece, and so you love all this. See, and you love all this, like you say, soft flirting, I guess, or something.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know
very
how you do
inane.
that.
I said
yeah,
inane
but you do
flirting.
that in
1984.
Yeah, and writing
I'm sure we can
letters.
find a date on one of these
Right.
things.
But here I've got.
Here we go.
It's what I. It's
1986 from
yeah,
Seattle,
86. Well,
Washington, July
that's the same-
1st, 1986.
That's the same. That's your skateboard.
Yeah, same year as I made
Same
that
year.
skateboard.
So connect those two together. But you've made this last year. This was made in January.
This was made in March.
So here we have. This is what's in. So here's all this. This is the body of this, and then we have this, which is just. This is like the brain, the head, the spinal column, the stem, the brain stem back there somewhere.
The black square.
Well, and then there's the black square, which is just powerful. The fact that you would interface the form of the head, which is the essential faciality of a person, is their face and their head, the brain, and everything else. But then to interface it and emphasize it with just a box, a block, a square, interfaced with the head. It doesn't represent like a hat or anything, I don't think.
No,
It's just really fascinating.
It's part of the structure.
Powerful imagery, how that relates to all this.
I mean, in honesty, I think when I put that black square there, it was for the structure, to hold
Yeah.
this head, because that
Yeah.
fabric wasn't going to hold itself.
So that's a good reason for it too. It had a function, so it wasn't necessarily aesthetic or design or anything, right?
Aesthetic design,
then
as
again,
you're making
yeah.
it, it's
I mean,
all
you
the
made the
same,
action and you
It's
saw
like
it
when
and
we
you
talk
kept
about the yellow on this
Yeah.
piece, they might be random
Yeah.
choices, but
Yeah.
they lend themselves to some sort of narrative.
Narrative, that was that, huh? That was an interesting narrative.
Yeah.
Are you going to...
I'm looking at this. This is like a single guitar string, maybe I could play
Yeah.
this one.
Okay, so we're looking at how paper is infused. So we're going to identify some paper. Here's some paper, some craft paper.
Yep.
Here's
That's-
some paper that's some
This is
art
actually
paper.
from a defunct grocery store. I can tell by these red lines. Lucky's.
And it's what this piece, the structure of it, essentially, it's pure glue. It's probably as much glue as it is paper.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And here's some paper, you know, that comes from a friend. It looks like a handmade art paper or something. You can get your stick, Shane, at this
My
point.
stick here? Stick
and
it
we
to
can-
me.
So we can stick together.
Got to stick together like glue.
We're going to stick
You know this song,
together
John?
and point.
Septic Death. They have a song. Got to stick
Oh.
together. Got to
Oh,
stick
no,
together.
no,
Got to
no,
stick
that's-
together like glue.
That's exactly it right there. So we're doing it. And that
Yeah.
just precipitated that
Yeah.
abstraction.
So what are we pointing at next?
Well, let's point out, let's go to this. Let's go to Titus.
Titus.
Yeah, Titus has, it was January, right?
This was January, February. Yes, this is a pre-COVID, though has a mask,
Pre-COVID. Right.
which is an interesting part of the whole series that I threw a mask on somebody before we were all wearing masks.
Yeah.
This is like a reverse self-portrait. We've talked about it a few times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I wasn't
the
wearing a
formation-
mask when I made it, and then
Yeah.
COVID came and I had a bunch of these masks.
So here we have, you know, so you have the form, it's the abstraction of the collage, which is an assemblage of materials in a fragmented sort of environment. So we have these fragmentations of parts and pieces of the form. So this has, based on the form and the internal, I think of it as a nervous system here. These are
Yeah.
veins and, right?
Yeah.
And especially here is the nervous system. These wonderful thread lines. It could be the subway system map. It could be the nervous system or blood vessels or tattoos.
Or
It connects to a
tattoos.
lot of different sort of imagery and connection to material. And Titus, I guess, even his name connects. He has a personality. I mean, you just get a hit, don't you think, Shane?
Yeah.
Is that you can feel it,
He's a
especially.
strong person. We gave him the name Titus because I believe it was the #1 strong male name on Google when you type in
Yeah.
strong male name.
Yeah,
You
sure.
get- you get the
That's
name
right. You were
Titus.
looking for a strong male name.
Is your name short for Titus? Ty? No?
Titus. Okay, now that we're still on paper, we're going to do a quick experience of paper in itself, in its being paper, okay? And how to interact with paper. So here's some paper. This is a poster that's for a performance piece that Shane and I collaborated on back in April of 2019. Collaborated on the design. That's my artwork there. The title of the piece was Pulse Interval Analysis. And so one of the things, this was about sound. We did a sound, noise, improvised performance piece. And we started off the presentation, I want to recreate the power of paper as it can be translated into a different medium. And I've always been fascinated with the sound of paper, meaning being spoken. Can you get the mic?
It's on here.
Yeah. There's a pulse. There's a form. The two-dimensional paper that you would think is two-dimensional, within 3 seconds, transforms into a three-dimensional piece, complete with sound generation. This was the program for the piece. I also consider this folding. We folded these so people could have them. So when the performance started, people would open. And we notice when we open these, different sound. The sound is not only different, but the pulse is different. Crumpling is a very it's like a flowing, more consistent modulation of sound. When you unpack them, when you unfold them, it's more deliberate. You have to grab certain things because the pulse is much more random and not as consistent, and the time is suspended. So that is an aspect of paper.
I just find
Another
paper to
group
be
of
one of the
paper.
most amazing substances, to be honest.
And
I
right
don't
here,
know why.
paper, paper is part
Paper, it's
of the work.
everywhere. That's how my artist statement starts out for this show, Social Glue. I love these, and the great part about this is after we had crumpled these all up in the original performance, I also chewed one up.
That's
with
right.
the microphone up to me, which might be a reenacted right here.
Yeah. Right. Beautiful. Reenact our piece.
Not what found.
Good. Well, but it's inside your body. It's being muffled by your mouth and the flesh.
Ty, what does that sound like in the headphones?
Oh, it sounds like ASMR.
ASMR, great. Yeah, okay, ASMR. Great.
And
Yeah,
now,
good.
even
You
when
get
we
the idea.
undo it
Great, but it's
after
also
it's wet,
it's also
after
you
undo
see.
it after it's wet, it's
You see.
even sounds
Yeah,
different.
it's even softer. It has a different timbre. The whole characteristics. It's like going from a brass instrument to a stringed instrument. It's much mellow and soft.
Well, I think what you see
Beautiful.
in my artwork,
We
we've
just
talked
created
about it
another-
multiple times, is the visual of my artwork transcends.
Yeah.
Not transcends, but the visual of my artwork is almost the same as my musical. They're the same thing. They're mashups, they're cuts, they're
Mashups.
collages.
That's what's the word we're getting at. All these fragmentations, these are mashups. And a lot of that's going on in music, right?
And they cross-reference without the music. Like this is all, this whole thing happens because of music. You know what I mean, John?
Yeah.
These are all posters for a concert. These are all handwritten
Yeah, these are-
for music. But then I take these things that are made as a product for music
Right.
to do the visual art. I love this piece. Great stuff.
Yeah. Now we got to look into the detail of this piece. That's fascinating. Also, not only is it just a randomization and fragmentation of time, right? Time intervals. I love this cable.
It's like it's actually like the threads on the piece right
Yeah,
here.
It's all his hand. His handwriting is not changed for 50 years. And it's the assemblage of events in a fragmented mashup. It's a mashup of everything in the events. So he's done his mashup, and he's got all these that he saved of all the upcoming events, which is just massive. So you get a feel of all the extensive extent of the performance that he produces at Kirk's Grocery. But then Shane wants to add another variation to the piece, the final piece. And this is the story. Can I tell it? Or
Yeah,
do you want to
please,
tell
no,
it?
please tell it. I told it in the
I think
last.
it's more exciting.
But I do want to just point out, Billings,
yeah.
we are in Billings, Montana, and Billings, the world does need to know, has an incredible art scene, music and
That's right. Okay.
all
Yeah,
sorts
that
of
part
music.
of it. Yeah, you see
And this
all
is
of that.
almost, this right here, this piece is a nice document of, oops,
That's part of it.
that's going to glue itself together, and that's going to
That's
be
part of it,
beautiful.
yeah.
That bottle's going to
Gluing
stick
it-
to that piece of paper.
glue- look at
And
the-
this
It's a
glue,
nice composition.
this glue is actually going to turn black. Once it
Yeah.
dries, it will become clear, and it'll be black,
Yeah.
and this
But we're
bottle will
going
be
to-
stuck to
we're
it,
gonna-
and we will
yeah.
frame it, and we will
Right.
call it.
But we're going to
Social
interface.
glue.
We're supposed to interface with this, but now I don't know if we can. Okay, Shane. So we got. Okay, so that's that layer. That's the layer of all of the, and also the pieces of art. There's titles of tunes. There's bands. So there's a playlist, right? And then there's titles of from the art gallery phase. Here's one. Here I am on here even. Look at this. Jon Lodge, Apricot with Kombu. Time-stamped for archival monitoring.
And that was because I was, well, the first month Kirk's was open, I thought I would handwrite all the labels.
Yeah.
And that's
right,
a lot of
and
work,
that's the
so I
handwritten
quit
label.
doing that.
So here's the finale of this piece. I mean, the last energy field of the piece. This is all very, black and white, very monochromatic, minimalist. It needs a hit.
I need
So
a hit.
Shane,
You love
you
to
need
work
a
in black
hit.
and white. I need color.
Well, yeah, you need a hit, but that's fine. Yeah.
It was
I need a hit also, but I never get to it. But anyway, he decides, let's see, I think yellow is going to be good. So you go through your pile of paper, right?
Mainly it was a
I
big
can just
stack,
see it.
and I'm like, there's a yellow
Okay,
piece.
a
And
big,
I'm like,
a big
yellow's
stack of
perfect.
paper, you want yellow paper, okay? And there it is, yellow paper. And it's the yellow that defined it. It wasn't the content of what was not written on the paper. It was the fact that it's yellow. And what energy, what emotion, what connection to all of these events in time and space, what is the yellow? The last layer
The last layer
that you
is
fragmented.
on accident, not on accident.
I know.
Purposely fragmented.
Purposely fragmented, but what is define?
It was
Tell us that. Tell us that.
Kirk's needed to close for a couple weeks because I had a friend die down in Colorado. So I got a call on Monday morning, which must have been March 5th or 6th, something like that. I can't tell what. Yeah, March 5th maybe, because this says March 7th, so that was probably a Wednesday or Thursday. And so I went out of town, and the piece of yellow paper I grabbed was the time that Kirk's had an emergency, and it says due to family emergency, if you put all those three pieces together. And we still I went out of town. And it is amazing that all the white pieces of paper are the days that Kirk's was open, and the yellow piece of paper is when something dramatic really happened.
Shut down.
Yeah. And that was just
Severed
random. That was random choice of
severed
yellow
that-
paper,
that
but it gives it a
continuum.
narrative. Once again, narrative can come in.
Yeah, due to a family emergency, just full of grief and tragedy, right?
Yeah.
Now, I think, that is,
Ty Herman's on that poster. You
It's
can see
just,
Ty's name. He's running sound
Yeah.
tonight for this live stream.
yeah,
Ty
so
Herman.
how that visually and conceptually all comes together by chance. And there we are, right there is an example. A lot of this is planned, a lot of it is random. But it's like from John Cage, what John Cage says. We have to give chance a chance. That's what's happening here.
Yeah. And the chance, the different layers, what's great about art is when you have a painting, you have your visual, you're relating to the visual aspect of a painting. You might be relating to the emotional aspect of a painting. That, I don't know what I'm trying to say with that, John. I love this piece though.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, it still didn't have enough. I put the yellow on, and I wanted lines, because as you can see, there's so much lines and thread, and I just love this thread
Yeah.
line work.
Right, the thread.
The
That's
thread
the
line.
thread. The thread is a thread throughout the work,
The glue, the social
glue,
glue, the
the
threads.
connection.
God, this is beautiful. This is going to be nice.
Speaking of, one of the functions of our glue accumulation is to retrofit one of the pieces with one of these.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
going to interact and
Do
refragment
you want to
or
tell why we
mash
want
up
to retrofit? Why we're going to
and
work on
mash
some
up
art
one of
together?
these pieces. We're going to mash up one of these pieces. So we can just, yeah. So we thought, well, let's see, we can use these. And we have the approval from the artist.
Well, let me tell a little bit of story about this
Tell a
piece.
story about that piece. Tell about the story.
So this piece,
Yeah.
which is called Red State, is just a collage. Once again, it's paper on some cardboard. It's very, I was trying to make this work extremely fragile, almost unsellable and unframeable was kind of some of what I was going for with this one. But this thing right here kind of reminded me of Idaho, this really soft crepe paper here. So I called it Red State. I believe Idaho's a red state. But when I grab things, like a lot of my work, I'm going for randomness. And I had made this whole white thing, and similar to the one over there where I had grabbed the yellow, I needed a pop of color because I like pops of color. So I grabbed this red stuff and I glued it to here. Now there used to be a bow here, like a Christmas bow, and it was holographic in gold. And John wasn't a big fan of it, and we discussed it for a long time. And I wanted to keep this bow here because it went along with my, when I make art, I really like to work by chance, similar to John. So when I grab a piece of paper, if it has a bow on it and I stick it on a piece of art, I want to leave that bow on there because it was there to begin with. Me and John had a conversation. We thought the bow didn't work, but tonight we thought we would retrofit it with a bow.
So he agreed with me. I mean, I had the nerve to interfere with an artist's work, and you know, but you went with it.
Oh yeah, no, I'm down.
Yeah.
We're adding to this.
So now we think that
You've retrofitted multiple
So
pieces of
you-
these
so we're
artwork.
gonna collaborate.
The reason this
So we
Joe
can-
here has the.
Yeah,
Oh, you've already put glue on it. Nice.
yeah. So under your instruction,
Yeah, let's
You
put
mind?
It, no, let's put it right where,
you
the bow
direct
used to
where
be.
it goes.
Let's go
Right
right
here.
there
Is that
the
where it
bow
was
used to
right
be.
there? And now that one of the problems with the bow is
Yeah.
it's silky.
Show them the glue.
So here's we use our live glue, right? Liminal glue from our glue flow of the live dead air zone will get interfaced.
So this has now become a Jon Lodge, Shane DeLeon. It already was a collaboration piece because you subtracted from it, actually. I can hold that for you, John.
Yeah, you can hold it for about 2.5 hours.
Hold it for you. I got it. Why don't you?
Is it going to stay there?
Yeah, we'll get it to stay there.
Okay. Well, I think if it, yeah,
That's
we're going to
actually
watch.
nice.
We can watch glue dry.
You want to sit here and watch glue dry? So yeah, this is actually a Jon Lodge, Shane DeLeon. This piece here,
This piece.
you want to bring up, you
This
have,
piece,
you
yes.
showed the,
That's before I want to get to the glue aspect. This is the thread we're going through all these pieces about the paper and the materials. Okay, this is paper, but it's more industrial paper. All this paper is paper that's used for posters and writing and letters and everything. This was harvested from the Black Lives Matter demonstration here in Billings on June 7th, right?
June 7th, 2020.
2020.
Billings, Montana, which is the name of the large piece over there.
Right, so this was one of the pieces that was generated from the materials that were mounted to a fence that's right next to Kirk's Groceries
Correct.
in Billings. And so when we're doing collage, just because of the materiality of that, it's amazing how cardboard becomes a common material that people can really relate to for making signage and posters, not necessarily just paper. And it's like design. People just intuitively think that, well, this is outdoors and here's this cardboard and they like the feel of it and look at it. But when you think of it, cardboard is structural. I mean, paper is somewhat, but cardboard, because of the corrugation flowing through all this, is structural.
I couldn't glue
It's
it
like a
together.
bunch of I-beams going across, so you can bend it one way, but across so it has this materiality and physicality. So Shane, the first thing you do, right? Shane, do you think you're going to connect to that mass and make armor, a representation of armor based on the materials?
Yep.
You could have made an abstraction with this. You could have made numerous other things, which would have been great, but you kept this form and connected to that mass of the material.
Well, I wanted to use the words, the texts, the signage made by our community. I mean, these are all made by people in Billings or maybe Red Lodge or somewhere. They all came here to hang these signs at Kirk's Grocery or to bring them to the protest back then. And the amazing thing is after I had made this collage, I had all this paper left over, not paper, all this cardboard left over, and I just was like, it's got to be a cop. It's got to be a riot cop. It's got to have all these names. Jane recently shared a picture, and there's some statue down in the south of some Confederate guy, and then it's just covered in graffiti all around it, and it's an aerial picture. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've connected to a lot of different layers of information and resource.
And this is why I work flat. All these are made on the ground, so I don't have to sit here and hold them. When, I'm working with gravity over here trying to get this piece to glue. But the one thing we can say about all these pieces is they were all made flat on the ground, so I didn't have to work against gravity. But I think, has it been long enough?
Go for it.
Woo!
Yep, let it slide. Let it slide. Look at that.
Oh,
Beautiful.
it's even got this nice drip.
Yeah, we got the drip. It was
Oh,
random.
it's opening.
You didn't.
It's blossoming.
Beautiful. You didn't intervene the whole time. You were actually. It was constructed while doing something else, which is a nice touch of creativity. So back to the physicality and the construction of this monolith. Okay, Shane? What?
Yeah,
We're going to stick
I'm
together.
glad you're going to get on my level.
And we're going to stick together. And here, but finally, look at
Yeah.
here. We can eye to eye, look
Eye
at
to eye.
straight across. Isn't that great?
That's great. Thanks.
Fantastic at that level. And then flat. Okay, so again, because of the materiality here, a lot of this is so heavy and dense that glue may not work.
Glue wasn't going to work.
Glue wasn't going to work.
Or
Okay?
not
So-
Elmer's glue.
Yeah, so some of the glue is glued, but then just the mechanism of engineering interfaced with creativity and solving problems along the way and keeping things in context, right?
Correct.
What is the perfect context is come up with the idea of these industrial ties. These ties are functional in holding these heavy, dense masses of volume together, and they're flexible, so they function like joints. They're like, they reference like these are the flexible bending positions of the armor. I love, and
Yeah,
and
it's
additionally to
mimicking the
that,
armor.
the points, the structure points, the composition of the ties is defined by the pressure point. So the whole composition is determined by something else, which is functional. So there's a grid, there's a logic in the production of the composition of the ties. The ties flow throughout the whole piece. They're like, it can be considered like the glue that holds the piece. But then the other layer of it, as far as being functional, is what I just can't stop looking, is how it looks. The ties sticking out, shredding space, the edges, and the fact that they're red ties. All of that comes together just to energize the piece. In addition to the connection to our citizens. It's interesting also, up here, why is this? This seems to be the whole graphics here. See, this is all graphics. This is brilliant here, designed, by the way, the graphics here. All of this is really heavy, pretty heavy block letters. And then right up here in the area of we have this fleeting, ornamental, calligraphy, decorative, fluid, albeit this, but just the general. Why did that land up in there, do you think? Or was there a
Well,
thought
I
there?
mean, the answer
It's
to
like
why
some
that
spiritual
piece
connection.
is right here. So this piece showed up on the George Floyd Memorial. This piece right here. Someone brought this.
Yeah,
And
okay.
someone strapped this to the fence. It caused a good conversation because, we're doing a Black Lives Matter, and this shows up and it has the All Lives Matter. Now, these are two opposing, they don't have to be opposing points of view, but they have become opposing points of view because we are talking about Black Lives Matter. So this was up on the fence, and multiple people thought we should take it down because it did not fit the narrative of the week, or this is considered offensive. But then it's softened by this great quote by Banksy: "We were all humans until race disconnected us, religion separated us, politics divided us, and wealth classified us."
Yes.
So we had a conversation, the people, the committee, and I said, hey, someone came to this fence. They hung
Yeah.
this up. Maybe they're getting there, they're on their way there. This is a beautiful statement here. And we left this up.
Yeah, well, it's a part of people's
It's
thinking.
a part of the
free
people,
speech.
and you know,
They're not-
free speech, as we talked
Exactly.
about free speech. We had
It's
a long
somebody's
conversation
perception
a couple
of
days
their
ago about free speech.
expression for this. We can't screen necessarily that.
I could have.
Especially
It was
in
my
this
right
area.
to-
Oh, you could have.
not
It's
my
your-
right, it was
It's your
my
property and it's not a
ability
thing.
to
Absolutely.
screen.
But I think that was just,
But I left it there. But when I put
Brilliant.
this together, and I'm putting this
Yeah.
big riot cop together out of all these signs, this piece became a symbol of the cop's brain to me. This all lives matter, the delicateness. But because of this Banksy statement, it's confusing. This sign is
Yeah, yeah.
confusing because
Yeah.
we all want to have
Yeah.
a straight narrative on these subjects. We
yeah.
want to have Black
And
Lives
it's fine,
Matter,
and nothing
or
is.
defend
yeah.
the blue.
And it's
or we wanna have
ambiguous.
this,
It's
or we
ambiguous.
wanna
It
have
has
that.
more than one meaning. It's complex.
It's very
It's a
complex.
huge interaction of human emotion and perception. But you know what's interesting is what I pointed out here. I don't know what is that you placed it in the prominent position of faciality of all of these pieces. This is the essence of the piece, and of all of this here, that. And how it looks and what it communicates is at the nerve center of
Yeah,
the piece.
exactly. That is exactly
Which is
what
just like awesome.
Well, this piece-
Involved in its background, you know, of possibly being screened, right?
Yeah,
And censored, it becomes the prominent focus of the piece.
Yeah. This piece I love. You know, I just put it together. This piece came together in less than 24 hours from the initial, I should make a riot cop out of these cardboard pieces, to it being stuck together on the floor. And was over here pretty much a couple
Yeah.
days later when we hung the show. A lot of these things happen really quick, and they create their own narrative. And as time goes on, as we mentioned about Titus, he was not made to be a protester. He was not made
Yeah,
to be
right, exactly.
during COVID. I put a mask on in February, and Mary said, "Why are you making gang members?" Well, the idea of the mask completely changed over the next month. And what really changed is I started wearing a red mask all the time, so this became a aftermarket self-portrait.
Yeah.
And I'm happy this piece has sold, and it will be going to Washington, D.C.
Absolutely.
So that's really awesome. This is one of the pieces that has sold already in the show.
So quickly, interface with this is what I also interacted with your piece.
Uh-huh,
right?
another
Is that
collaboration.
I love the construct of this artist who we know actually used the whole construct of the box, and I had to get my hands on this just to see this. See, all of these are more or less flat, but somebody.
We know who made it. She was
This.
here. She did a tour.
Linda
Lemire.
Lemire did this. I know.
Linda Lemire
this
made
is
that
Linda
piece.
Lemire. And when so I'm here, and I see this, and this was up, and I was bending this stuff, and when I saw this, see, I love random numbers and serial this is like pure, cold, calculated serial number that identifies something. There's no message, there's no meaning,
you know.
but it just has this connection.
Well, let's put
identification.
message. Let's put a
I
message
love how
to
that
it.
looks. This is the serial number of this piece, say, or the product number. And so I had to intervene at your, right? You let me do that. And I actually taped it down because it kept, so we can see that. Is the serial number for Joe. Okay, you're going to hold the guitar now, and then we'll go on to the infinite
Sure.
piece.
We're
Wanna
getting
do
there.
that?
Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. We don't really have anyone monitoring comments tonight, but
Well, we didn't. That's right. We didn't have.
so you want to
our
play this?
stick.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
That was it.
You were, again, sticking together.
Sticking together like glue. All right. Another piece we're going to dissect?
Okay. This is the title. Billings, Montana, June 7th, 2020. This is a component of Joe over here. Joe was defined, like we talked about, as the materiality of the materials. This also, in each case, all of the actual posters are represented pretty clearly. These are fragmented to some degree, and fragmented and fractured.
Yeah.
This piece is all of the other posters that were on different material. It was defined. This was defined in the imagery.
These were defined because I could glue
Yeah.
them together.
You could glue them
Elmer's
together
glue would
because
hold
of the
this-
paper,
these
exactly,
signs
which is
together.
just like what fascinating that defines the nature of the structure and the composition. Conventional wisdom of Shane and anyone else who would have these posted on the fence, everybody respects everybody else's image, so these are like mounted in their own zone, right?
Correct. Yep.
And so everyone can see these
You can read- you can
individually.
read the
You can
message
see
on
the
every
complete. You
single
can
one.
read every message. Everybody respects not covering someone else's up, right? So everything is arranged in this sequence, in this grid of all of the communication. The next step, if you wanted to represent this, and Shane mentioned that he had this idea, he's going to do a show of these after the
Yeah. I asked all the people at the
Yeah.
protest, all the people
Okay.
that had left their signs, to bring them to
Yeah,
Kirk's.
to bring them to
and
Kirk's.
I was thinking I'd do an
Yeah.
art show. Put them
Yeah,
all
you do
on
an
the
art
walls.
show. So you would remount all of the pieces at Kirk's,
Yeah.
more or less like they were on the fence.
Yep.
Okay,
Easier
now
to read inside.
Yeah, so then what happens for this to happen?
Well, I put one down. We started with
Yeah.
this one, and then I quickly realized to use all these signs, I would have to have a very large piece. This piece is already
Yeah.
10 feet
Right.
by 8 feet.
Yeah.
And if I wouldn't have mashed them up, collaged them together, brought the glue into play, this piece
Yeah.
would have been huge. But the beauty of it is that the messages all still shine through, even though you can't really read any of them,
Yeah.
because you know what each word says. Or
Yeah.
not all of them, but you know what a lot
Yeah.
of these words
So
say.
the key of having this, it actually abstracts. I mean, this is actually has more energy because of its fragmentation aspect. It's like we were talking about earlier. It's a mashup. It has the energy of things that aren't just there and to be revealed. There's a mystery. You have to search for a discovery. There's fragments. There's bits and pieces of things. Plus, it has another complex juxtaposition of image elements, of surface, color, texture, right? That adds another. So this is an abstraction of the actual graphic original source,
Yeah.
which really takes it to another level. This can be considered, like we use mashup. This is like, I call it quodlibet. Quodlibet is a music composition technique from the 15th century. It's been used ever since. And quodlibet means, it is used by musicians initially. Musicians is taking melodies and tunes that are usually popular songs and playing them all together in sequence, all at the same time, simultaneously, and randomly. So you have layers of recognizable elements of songs, but it's still abstracted because of the juxtaposition of the layers and the linear fragmentation of the pieces. It automatically adds complexity to harmony, to melody, and to rhythm. And it's just set up the system and turn it loose. And these are techniques that have been used, for instance, by Frank Zappa. There's some Beatle compositions that use quod libet. Charles Ives, a lot of his compositions use quod libet. So it's everywhere, so it's been also influenced and actually can be considered a mashup in music. Mashup, mix, glitch, all that music comes from quod libet, taking known entities and juxtaposing them together in a fairly random. Well, this
And being able
piece,
to pull out those melodies with your ear.
right,
on
so
top of
something
each other.
happens that you could never compose literally in
Yeah.
your mind. It sets up a system that generates variation.
Harmonies, melody, yeah.
What you have here is the same thing, only it's visual. Right? You're
Yeah.
taking recognizable language, you know, these that you can kind of recognize what people are saying here, right? Randomly juxtaposing them together.
Silence.
Right. And then once something gets fragmented. So it's a combination of being read literally and actually just being visually looked at and being fascinating.
And filling in the blanks with your brain,
Yeah,
allowing
exactly.
your brain to use its, we're programmed by culture. So we know what these sayings are a lot of times because we've been programmed through culture,
Yeah.
to know what they say.
Yeah. And it's so complex, and we have 2 more hours, we'll do this, but if you start looking at all the events, all the little events that happen that construct this throughout the flow, the language, the published texts that people put up, right? All the different materials. It's just fascinating, endless depth of both information and abstraction and randomness and creativity.
And creativity and emotion, these
Emotion,
signs,
that's it,
these
emotion,
songs-
that's what
these
I'm-
signs were created by,
Yeah, emotion. Thank you.
let's say we don't know, but let's
Yeah.
say that a lot of the people who made these signs don't consider themselves artists. We've talked about that before.
Right. Yes.
But when you're making these emotional signs, white silence is violent, Black Lives Matter, support food justice. When you're writing these, say their names. I mean, these are powerful phrases. These are powerful parts of our culture, and to lay them on top of each other, I don't know. They become more powerful by not being able to see them all. And like you said, different parts pop out. Yeah, this happened in 3 days. This piece was made in 3 days or so, on the floor at Kirk's
And-
Grocery.
Yeah, the floor, which spanned just about the complete whole floor from
Yeah,
wall to wall.
it's this size because that's about how much size I had.
Yeah.
But there was only, after all this, there was only maybe 4 or 5 signs I didn't use, and I didn't use them just because I didn't want to add something to everything. Like these cutouts here are great. The outside shape of this is beautiful. Drops down. There's a lot of people's work in here. These are a local artist, Patrick Scott Wilson. These are some cyanotypes he did.
Yeah.
You can barely see them, but they're right here.
Patrick Scott Wilson.
You can see
Cyanotype
Breonna Taylor's
process.
face right,
Right.
here. Very slightly in that person's eyeball.
Yeah, executed in cyanotype
Yeah.
process.
All right. Love this piece. Social glue, all the glue that holds us together. Currently seems like it's unraveling. So that'll be an interesting way forward to see what happens with our society as we, maybe it's like glue, when I use this glue, if I was to bend this piece of paper a bunch, it would start to fall apart,
Yeah.
The social glue falls apart if you bend it too much, maybe.
Yeah, interesting metaphor.
If I started to roll this up, move it around, it would start to fall apart. All these works are made to be ephemeral. They're not necessarily meant to last. I hope they last,
Oh, they'll last.
but
Yeah.
that wasn't the goal with them. The goal was to get them out and to create characters with personalities. Each piece here was supposed to have a personality of its own, and I think they really create that. When I first talked about it, we talked with Jon about naming them after emotions, but we quickly changed that to naming them after people and trying to give them
Yeah, which is I
a
think,
personality
good choice.
by a name. The name Joe was chosen for a riot cop because Joe seems like a great name for a cop. You know? So what do you think, Jon?
Thinking.
What
What about our garments?
our garments?
So we do a quick connection. These are really about glue. I mean, these are like glue, the actual, three-dimensional aspect of them resides in. And this is just the Elmer's glue you're using here again, too, right?
This is great.
It's
It
hanging,
worked.
it's hanging, man. It's hanging in there.
And look
Look
at
at the composition. Yeah.
Nice
Look at
glue
this.
dripping down.
Look at the variables of the dot sequences, the modulation.
And you know, one of the things we didn't get to so much in this conversation, but when we were planning for this conversation, we talked about a lot of my creativity just informs itself. Like, you know, the handwriting of the posters informs itself to be about music, which informs itself to be about visual art. What's great about this jacket here, it's actually going to be the cover of my band's next album called, well, the name of the band's Miss Massive Snowflake, and it's your favorite band. And this is the cover art for it. I'm pretty excited about it. That should be out in January next year.
But wearable art, you know, wearable collage, wearable assemblages.
But this,
Wearable-
all these
these are
clothes
like-
I made are unwearable.
These are like, well, you could wear them. No, you could wear. I would think, you know, I was thinking about that. You mentioned that before, but they are art, and so what?
Yeah.
But it is, you know, wearable art. You could just force it. You could just push it. It might be.
Should I put one on?
It might be an experience to get these on and watch the morphing of everything. See?
Should I try to put that one on?
Sure.
I'll take my other shirt off? Live
Yeah,
on
that's-
camera?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, shoot. Hold on. Will you hold it for a sec?
Sure.
Let's see if we...
Yeah.
Oh, but this...
Yeah, we're trying this on here. This is really sculptural. Yeah, it's really sculptural. Wow.
So unwearable clothing. Huh? So you can wear it. Fits.
There it is. Yeah.
Kind of feels like a breastplate. I kind of feel like I'm
Yeah, does it come from Yeah, you can move around,
this kind of
right?
like feels like
So we want to see you at one of your presentations, don't you think? I mean, that's
I love this one
quite,
because it's got 3D. I could kind of
yeah,
put shot
that's not
glasses
going to
or
fall
something.
apart. And it's not like it's got everything hanging around on the back of it either. So you haven't tried that on before,
I
have you?
haven't ever tried it on, no.
Yeah, it fits great.
I don't know if it'll make it through the wash.
Yeah, I like the form,
It probably looks
I like the composition.
Bunch it together a little more. But
Yeah,
this is
Shane
cool.
Shane tries on the sculpture, and it works. Just leave that on now.
I will,
Come on,
right?
yeah, don't.
Well, I
Yeah.
can't, 'cause what do we
We'll
got?
go
What
out.
do we got left?
We've got that. So this is the thread. We have thread in the piece, and so now we're going to do the Miss Massive Snowflake riff. Just as the
Gotta take this off of that.
you do because why not? This is the riff from one of my favorite Miss Massive Snowflake tunes. I think it should be hit tune top 40. I've listened to it over and over again. It's called Candy Wrapper, and it is connected to this graphics here that we're getting back to, the graphics. This is the poster. And you see the connection to the strings of lines and the composition of this piece. And this is the band, March 7th. There's rarely any year dates. to
The album Bobby and Sheila.
Candy Rabbit and Bobby and Sheila album. It was released in when, about
2018.
2018.
Lord Cole Records on vinyl and digital.
Hold the
By
guitar.
Local Sam Goody.
I think we're ready at this point for the closer. You think? What do we have?
What's the closer?
The closer is the opener, remember?
Oh yeah, the closer's the opener.
The closer is the opener. Are we ready to
First
go?
off, let's introduce the
Are
crew.
we-
Can we talk about the crew a little bit?
Yeah, the crew. Yeah, the
They're
crew.
real important.
Yeah, let's talk about the crew. You're right. Yes, we have to
Stan.
talk about the crew.
This is Stan over here.
Yeah. Stan,
Monica
here.
over here.
Come on.
Real happy to be part of this art project. This is a 5-person
Fantastic.
art. And then Ty is around the corner.
Ty's the sound
Ty
man.
Herman, a real important part of this massive
Yeah.
snowflake and just Billings underground culture in general. Great person.
Right.
And Stan, he's taking us all to the next level. That's what we love.
Yeah,
about
Stan with technology. And Ty is a member of Miss Massive Snowflake band
Yes, correct.
on an ongoing basis, not just a ringer.
No, he's a
Right, he's on the road, he's there,
full-fledged
grinding
member
it
of a
out.
band that lives in multiple states.
Very
So,
good.
yeah, we're gonna take you out on the same kind of vamp we brought you in on. Thanks for joining us, Social Glue. Thanks. You can come see the show anytime. You can get a hold of me, kirksgrocery@gmail.com. Or you can just call Kirk's Grocery and set up an appointment, and I'd love to come show you this in person, this awesome art show, which we discussed in varying degrees today. But yeah, thanks so much to Jon Lodge and Jane Dexter, whose gallery this is, for letting me do this awesome show, one of the best shows I've done. I'm real proud of it. All the pieces are for sale, and we love all of you. We're going to take you out with some music. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you.
We'll see you next time. Keep the fabric of society
Keep the
together.
glue going, the social fabric glue.